Hello, hello everyone. You people able to see my screen?
Yes, Praveen.
So let's wait for a couple of more minutes and then we'll start. So I believe like we have discussed um, functions in our previous sessions. Yes. The different ways of declaration of a function, different types of functions that we have. In our today's session, we'll talk about an array. Let's get to the strength in next couple of minutes and we'll start. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to create a file which is arrays.ts. We discussed regarding array in our session 2. Okay, let's get started. Okay, I hope you people are able to see my screen and able to hear me properly as well.
Yes, Praveen.
Okay. So In session today, we'll be discussing regarding an objects in JavaScript and TypeScript, which is an array in JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay. Now, till now, whatever we have gone through in terms of a variable declaration, in terms of declaration of a function, um, in terms of declaration of like we have gone through with the different concepts like loop operators, functions, and other things, where we have declared single type of variable, and then we have stored some kind of values inside this, which was also a single values, right? Now, when we talk about an array, array is also a non-primitive data type, which basically says that non-primitive data type means something which will store a more than one values, more than one data. Okay, that is known as a non-primitive data type. Okay. So when we talk about an array, array is a non-primitive data type which stores more than one value. Okay. So which stores more than one value. Are you people able to hear me? Early, let's keep our group just for the technical discussion and any other help that the people are trying to get. Do not ping something like, you are not able to hear me or screen is not visible. That will not give you any kind of things. Instead, you can just ping it inside the Q&A. That would be better. Okay, so just keep our group just for the technical discussion. That will really be helpful, because I used to miss some people used to ask for a link, and there used to be some kind of many other messages which I used to miss. Some people request for access of a document, and that I again used to miss unless people directly ping to me. Okay, so it's always better that keep our group just for the discussion, and whatever these kind of issues that you have not able to see the screen or any other things, and that you can ping it out over here, and whoever is able to hear, they'll definitely resolve. Okay, I hope you not mind anything, but that will be good for us only. Just a suggestion, just a request. It is not an order, just a request. Okay, now let's get started for our array session over here. Now again, feel free to stop me in between if you think that you are not able to hear me anything. Okay, thanks. So let's go ahead and see for the discussion of an array that we have, like the topics that we have in terms of our next topic, which is array. Now, what is basically an array is? Till now, we have seen one type of variable. However, we have declared, like let's say let I equals to 10. So this is how we have declared till now, which is I equals to 10, and then some values, which is let's say example as I equals to 10, and second thing is like let's say let str equals to something that we have mentioned over here, which is John and all, right? So these kind of things that we have seen. Now we are trying to discuss something which is also a variable. Array is also a special type of data type that stores some multiple values. Array is also a special type of data type which stores multiple values. Let me also share the documents, like open the documents which we have created for our session, where we have listed few of the things in terms of an array. So let's see. Let me know if you are able to see my screen, which is having an array concept of a document.
Yes, Praveen.
Right. Great. Thanks. Now, when we talk about either in JavaScript or in TypeScript, array is a special type of variable that can hold more than one value. It's like a container, it's like a storage which stores some multiple values or items of like list of items that it can store. Whether the value can be of same type, or it can be of different data type as well. So in general, inside an array, we can declare a variable which can be of either a same data type or can be of a different data type. Okay. Now, when we talk about the different data types, that becomes like where we can make an array which can store a different data types. How can we make that? We have seen earlier whenever we try to declare a variable having an any type that will accept any type of data types, right? So in the same way, we'll also see like how an array can accept a multiple data type. Now also the second point for an array is array basically used to be an ordered collection. Array basically used to be an ordered collection. Now what is meant by ordered collection? Ordered collection means it will be in an sorted order. It will be in an ordered way. That means however you have stored a value inside an array, the value will be stored in the same way. Example, first place you have stored, let's say 1, second place you have stored 2, third place you have stored 3, and so on. That will always be getting stored in the same way. So always the first place will be for 1, second place will be for 2, third place will be for 3, and so on. That means items in an array are stored in a specific order, and you can access them. You can access them using the index. Okay, you can access them using the index. Index means, what is the index over here? Index is a position where the element is stored. So let's go back to our editor over here, where let's say I'll just say it as let array equals to some value, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now if you see over here, we have stored 5 elements, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is the position. This is the first position. This is first position. This is second position. This is third position. This is fourth position, and this is fifth position, right? So however you have stored the value inside an array, you will also be able to get the value in the same order. That means this is your first element, so you can access by using the first index. This is your second element, so you can access by using the second index. That means position of the value that are stored inside an array. Okay, that becomes just a position of the value. Okay, and then third will be the third position, fourth will be the fourth position, and so on. So internally, when you have declared this, right, when you have declared this array, this is an array, something that you declare inside a square bracket separated with a comma. Something that you have declared inside a square bracket separated with a comma is known as an array. How do I know that, or how do we know that that is really an array? So you can also check it with, there is an array available as a constructor, which is available inside JavaScript and TypeScript, and inside that we have a method known as isArray. IsArray will check whether the variable that we have declared is an array or non-array. Okay, let's say we have declared str over here. So check for the str. Str we have given over here. So if the str, which is a variable that we have declared over here, if it is an array, then it will return us a true value. If it is not array, then it will return us a false value. So psx, and then we have arrays.ps. Okay. So it is displaying us a false because it is just a variable that it is accepting a single value. So let's make it as inside the square bracket. Now see what it is displaying over here. It is now saying it as a true. That means whenever you try to declare a variable inside the square bracket is considered as an array. Whether you have a single value or a multiple value, that will be considered as an array. Again, for this array, if you talk about that we have stored over here, that will also give us a value as true because that is also an array that we have stored inside a variable, inside a square bracket. Okay, this is how do we access the value. But when we have stored a value inside the square bracket by providing some kind of values over here, this will be stored inside the JavaScript and TypeScript. This will be stored in a key and value pair. This will be stored in a key and value pair. The value that you have given will be the value, and what will be the key? Key will be the index. Key will be the position of the element that you have stored inside the array. Okay, what is meant by key will be the position? That means this will be stored like this, which is 0:1, 1:2, 2:3. Or let's say you might get confused over here, so I'll make it as 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And this will be 0:10, 1:20, 2:30, and so on. Now you might be wondering why 0. So this is an index. This is a position where the value have been stored. The first value that you see over here, which is 0:1, 2, are position of the element that you have declared over here. Yes, you are right. Whatever you see, this is a correct. That means index inside an array starts with 0. Index inside an array starts with 0, and it will keep on increasing by 1. 0, 1, 2, and the index will basically range from 0 to the total number of element minus 1. 0 to total number of element minus 1. Why I'm saying minus 1? 3 is 40, and then 4 is 50 over here. So you see the index is starting from 0 to 4, starting from 0 ending at 4. And the total number of elements that we have are 5 over here, right? So this will be considered as 0 to 4. If you count 0 to 4 will be equal to 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That will be counted as 5. Okay, so always remember that the index, which is a position inside an array, starts with 0. Index, I'll iterate, iterate once again, that index inside an array starts with a 0. Okay, and you can access them using that index, which is position in the array. The index starts from 0 for the first element. That means whenever you try to access the first element, you can simply access by using let's say console.log, whatever the array that you have given over here, which is array, and then inside the square bracket you can provide the index over here. Inside the square bracket, whenever you try to provide the index to get the value from an array, you have to provide inside the square bracket. Inside the square bracket 0, if you try to execute this, this will return as a first value that are available inside an array. Okay, so always remember that index will starts with 0 in array. I'll come back to this again. We'll try to explain it one more time. Now, in JavaScript and TypeScript, array will always be dynamic in nature. Array will always be a dynamic in nature. When we talk about dynamic in nature, that means if you delete, then the total number of element will be decreased. If you add, the total number of element will be increased automatically. So always in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript, the array will be dynamic in nature. You can add and remove an array, remove an element from an array at any point of time. Okay. Now the other concept that we have over here is multiple data that we have just gone through, that inside an array, you can store a multiple type of data type as well. That means inside an array can consist of a multiple data type. Just give me 30 seconds. Okay, so that is not yeah, tree map is an ordered collection. Yeah, similar to the concept that you talk about the tree map in Java over here. Now we have a multiple data types. That means inside an array you can also store a multiple or different data types value as well. Okay, So you can store number, you can store string, boolean, objects, and any other data type inside the array as well. Okay, these are basically the properties which we have in terms of array. Yes.
So Praveen, can we store the multiple data types in a combinations? Like if I can start with the number, then I can also in the same declaration I can also provide the string, or is it only the numbers that I can declare?
So if you are talking about this thing, you can also start string as well. Is this the one that you're talking about?
Yes, right.
Yes, you can do that. You can do that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
So here, if you talk about, it will automatically uh, take the data type, which is known as type implicit, like type annotation, and then type. What is that? Anyone knows about the
Type
concept?
inference.
Inference. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is in terms of a type inference, it is able to understand the data type, whatever you have declared. So this is also allowed in terms of both JavaScript and TypeScript.
Okay.
Okay. Now we can declare an array in two different ways. We can declare an array in two different ways. One is by using an array literal. What is literal? Literal means you can declare the value directly inside any variable. You can declare a variable and directly define the value of the variable. In the same way, you can store, you can declare an array directly defining inside the square bracket, and that is known as an array literal way of declaration. And second way is by using an array constructor. We have two ways. You should be having the access to this document. So I've given all the examples over here as well. You can go through with that. We have two ways to create JavaScript or TypeScript array, one by using an array constructor and other by using an array literal. So creating an array using array literal involves using square bracket that we have just seen over here, which is by using a square bracket, you can create an array inside this. By using a square bracket, you can create an array inside this. Directly, you can define an array over here inside the square bracket, and that will become an array. So there are two ways in which we can declare the array. One is known as array literal, and second way is known as using the array constructor. Okay. There are two ways in which we can declare an array. One way by using array constructor, and second way by using the square bracket, which is also known as array literal. Okay. So let's talk about the first one, and very easy one. Whenever we have to use, we'll be going through by using the array literal way itself. Whenever we go by, we'll be creating an array by using an array literal way itself. Okay. Now, first way is by using array literal, which is also known as directly defining inside the object, which is also known as array literal. So let's make it as 2 over here, which is array literal. How do we define what is the syntax? Let's see the syntax of declaration of an array using an array literal. Okay. So here in this case, we'll simply say it as starting with any keywords over here, which is let, and then we can define an array object, which is, let's say, array name. And you can also define the data type. If you would like to define the data type, you can also define the data type over here. Data type in the form of square itself. Data type along with the square. Okay, which will be in the form of data type inside the square bracket, and that will be as usual again an optional part. It will be as usual again an optional part over here. Okay, data type should be an optional, and then inside this we can define the values. Whatever the value that we have to define, we can define it inside the square bracket. So this becomes the basically a literal way of a declaration. That means a simple way of declaration of an array inside the square bracket. Okay. Now inside the square bracket, you can declare any other things. You can declare however we have seen over here, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then other things that you declare as like numeric plus combination of other values as well. Numeric plus combination of other values as well. You can declare it over here. Okay. Fine. So this is basically a syntax of declaration of an array. And now let's talk about this is basically a syntax in terms of a TypeScript. And how do we write in terms of a JavaScript? Just remove the data type over here. Okay, by now you should be aware of like how do we basically write this in terms of data, like in terms of a TypeScript and JavaScript. The only difference that we used to have is the data type, right? Okay, now let's go ahead and declare a value over here. Declare an array by using an array literal. So what I'll do is I'll simply copy paste the things that we have declared earlier for the array, which is let array equals to this, and this becomes the type of the declaration of an, or let's create some other. So which is let array 1 equals to, we can define it inside some values, probably 10, 20, 30. Then we can have something TypeScript. We can also have a JavaScript, or you can also have some other values, which is, let's say, some colors and all. And then you can also define it at row. So this is something that the data type is optional. But if you hover over on this, you can see that it has automatically collected what kind of values will be for these values over here, these data type over here. Right? So this is something that you will get in terms of only in terms of an TypeScript that we are aware of to declare the data type. But if you have not declared it, again, this will automatically identify the data type that we are trying to declare in terms of by basically evaluating the data that you have stored inside a variable. Okay. Now let's talk about how do we create a single type of an array. When we talk about a single type of an array, that means also providing the data type over there. So how can you create that? So in that way, you can also write it as, let's say, let array 2 colon, and then you can say it as, let's say, number. I'm just trying to declare a variable which can only store a numeric data type. And when you try to store a TypeScript, let's say in the form of string, it will say it as type string is not assignable. So you can also restrict an array to use a certain type of data type values. Okay, so that is also possible in terms of a TypeScript, which is not possible in JavaScript, because JavaScript is not type safe, where it will not allow us to declare a single. You can define, there is no harm that you can simply define like this in JavaScript as well, which will be a numeric, but it is not something that you can make it as a strict check over here. Okay, so let array name equals to value that you can define it inside this value 1 comma value 2 and so on. Okay, so whenever you want to make it as a numeric string and all, you can also define the data type, and in this case it will only accept the value that you are trying to store inside an array in a numeric format. This is how we basically declare an array. And if you try to print something, let's say if you are trying to print the fully array, say the one that you have declared for array 1, you will see that it will return us a value in the form of array itself. However, you have declared the similar kind in the same way, it will also declare the value. This is not something that the 10 that you have declared at first place will go in the last. No, it will display in the same order, however you have stored the value. That is why it is known as ordered collection. However, you have stored in the same way, the value will be stored. Okay, if you again try to print a number 2 over here, which is array 2, and you'll see that it will return us a value which is 10, 30, 50, 60, and 30, whatever we have declared. And that is also printing in the form of array itself. That means it is saying that the variable that you have declared is an array. Okay. And how do we get the value from the array that we have just seen? Whenever we have to get the value from an array, we can simply use array of index. That means console.log, let's say array 2, inside the square bracket, you can provide the index. So whenever you say like index of 2, that means the first element will be considered as a 0 index. Second element will be considered as a first index, and third element will be considered as a second index. So at this point of time, as we have given 2 over here, so 50 will be returned as a value. And see that it is returning us a 50 because 50 is available at second index. Why second index? Because index starts with 0 over here. Okay. Now this is just to access the value. That how do you access? You can also create an array which is basically, and also create an access array which is empty array. Okay. You can also create an array which is empty. You can just create an empty array, and then how do we assign the value? You can assign the value as we try to get the value from an array. How do we get the value from an array? Array 2, let's say array 2, which is array name, inside the square bracket, the index. In the same way, we can say it over here, which is array 3, 0 equals to some value, let's say TypeScript. And then you can say it as, let's say, array 3 of 1, which is equals to, let's say, some value which is 70. And when you try to print this array, which is console.log, and try to print the array which is array 3 over here, you'll see that it will return us a value which is whatever the value that we have stored over here. Okay, if you are trying to declare any variable which is accepting all the type of values, you can simply make it as any over here. Or if you want to store in a one type of data type, you can also store the value which will be in the form of number or string or boolean or anything that you would like to. So how do we store a value if you have created an empty array? By using again the same thing, which is array name of index. Array name of index over here. Okay. So this is first way of declaration of an array. And how did we get the value from here is by using basically an index. Okay, so let's say we have 100 items, 100 data available inside an array. Okay, so let's say we have 100 data available inside an array. At that point of time, will we be always using console.log array 2, console.log array 3, and so on? No, right? So at that point of time, we'll take the help of loop concept to get all the values one by one from the array. Okay, loop we have understood. There are different types of loop available in JavaScript and TypeScript, which is for loop, while loop, do while loop. Inside the for loop as well, we have different types, which are known as for loop, traditional for loop, for off loop, and for in loop, right? And that we said that the for off loop is used to iterate over iteratable objects, which is array, strings, and so on, right? So we'll show you that how can we use for off loop over here to access the element from an array. Okay, but let's see first by using a traditional for loop. How do we, what we are trying to do? We are trying to get all the values from an array one by one. We are trying to get all the values here. If you see, let me take it over here at this point of time. If you see over here, how do we get the value from an array? One by one by using array of index 2, array of index 3, array of index 0, 1, 2, and so on, right? But how do we get the value from an array at a time? So if you see over here, what loops is that? Loop says it will run the similar block of code multiple times. Loop will generally execute the same block of code multiple times, right? And in this case, if you see, let's say if you're writing a couple of times, which is like this, okay, and only the values which are getting changes 0, 1, 2, and others are exactly same, which is console.log array of 2 and bracket. Only the thing that are getting changes the index over here, right? So we can, in this way, the same block of code is trying to run multiple times. So we can take the help of looping concept as well. The first way is by using a traditional loop, which is for loop. So how do we declare the for loop? For loop will have a multiple things, right? Initialization, condition, increment, and decrement. I hope you people are aware of, right? Are any issues over there? I hope you people remember how do we declare a for loop,
Yes, Praveen.
right? Great. Okay, so in terms of a for loop, we use first as an initialization, which is let I equals to 0. So why do we start it with a 0 over here? Because the index starts with 0 inside an array. Okay, this is an initialization. What should be the condition? I is array dot length. What is the array that we have declared? The array that we have declared is, let's say, array2 dot length. Okay. Length is a property which used to get the total number of elements. I'll discuss this in few minutes. Okay. So length is basically a property that are available inside an array, which is used to get the total number of elements available inside an array. So once we start discussion of different types of methods that we have in array in next session tomorrow, there will also go through with the length property that we have. Okay, so array.length will basically get us the total number of elements that are available inside an array, length of an array. Okay, and then I plus plus. Okay. This will be an increment and decrement. And how do we get the value? So we get the value by using console.log array of inside the square bracket, which will be an index. So this way, right? So this is an index. Okay, and what we have to replace over here, we can replace it with I which represents an index over here, right? I basically represents an index over here, which starts with 0. Right? So that is what we can give it over here, saying that console.log I will be an index inside the object, inside the array, which will start with 0. So 0, this one, 1, this one, 2, this one, and so on. Okay, and we know how does the loop works. First time I will be 0. Next time when it iterate, I becomes 1, 2, and 3 on. And in this way, if you see now, it will get us one by one all the values. Let me try to break the line over here so that you'll get it in an easier manner. If you see, it is returning us a value one by one, and it has condition as well. So as soon as the condition become false, the loop have been terminated. Okay, so whenever we have to get the values from an array, like all the values from an array one by one, we can simply take the help of a looping concept over here. This is a traditional loop. Now, how about for off loop? For off loop also help us in getting the value from an array, right? So how do we declare for off loop? What is the syntax? How do we declare the for off loop? Is will be for, and inside this will be a code and curly braces. So it will again start it with the for keywords, and then we'll have a declaration of a variable. This is not initialization. This is a declaration of a variable. Just declare the variable. Okay. Off will be a keyword again, and whatever the iteratable that we are trying to iterate through. That means from wherever we are trying to get the value. Okay, so we have to start it with a for keyword. This is a variable that we have to declare. We do not have to assign anything. We just have to declare a variable. And where are we trying to use this variable? We are trying to use this variable on the iteratable objects. What is the iteratable over here? The variable, the array that we are trying to get the data from. Okay. And what is the data that we are, where is the data that we are trying to get from? We are trying to get from the array over here, right? So that array will be the iteratable objects. Okay. Now when we talk about the declaration is the similar one. Now, what is the variable? Variable, whatever we declare, will get the values from the array one by one. We'll basically get the values from the array one by one. We'll get the values from the array one by one. So let's see an example. So when we talk about a var, we'll simply declare a variable. Let's say I'll just say it as value. Okay, let value. So whatever the variable that we have declared over here, this is just a variable declaration, right? How do we declare a variable? Let value. Initialization means you have to initialize the value. Right? Declaration means you have just declared a variable. Declaration means you have just declared a variable. Okay. Now we have to just declare a variable which is value, and this variable will get the value one by one from the array. This variable will get the value one by one from the array. So where do we have to iterate? That variable you have to use it over here. So let value of is a keyword, that is where it's known as for of loop. For of. So what it says is for variable of the iteratable objects, which is, let's say, array2 over here. Array2 over here. Okay. Where are we trying to get the data from? We are trying to get the data from array2. Okay. And inside this, we simply have to, we do not have to use any indexing concept, because this value, the variable that we have declared, or let's say, I'll just say it as variable. The variable that we have declared will get the value automatically one by one from whatever the array that we are using over here. Okay, so we do not have to use indexing concept as we have used in terms of traditional loop. It's an easy format to use the for loop. Now we can simply say it as console.log variable. Okay. Get someone is knocking at the door. Just give me 1 minute. I'll back. Okay, so this variable that you see over here will get the value one by one from an array. So this will, as it will get the value directly from the array, so we can simply print that particular value. Okay, now in this case as well, when you try to see, this will also print us a value, which is similar one over this 10 to 50 or 10 to 30, whatever we have declared inside this. Okay, so this, if you see over here, this looks pretty simple in a straightforward manner, where we do not have to use any initialization. That means we do not have to care of the index that we have to use. We do not have to write any indexing condition over here. And we also not have to write any increment or decrement. We can simply use declare a variable, and this variable will get the value from this array, whatever the array that you have declared over here, one by one. And how does the condition matches over here? So this will try to check the total number of elements available inside an array internally. Until that element, the last element, it will keep on iterating. It will try to check, do we have any other variable after the last element? It will get the null value, and there it will automatically, basically like stop the loop, stop the execution of the loop. Okay, so that is how it basically checks the value over there. Any question over here till now, if you have anything? You can have a dynamic array. Everything in terms of an array will be dynamic. You can also use an array of a string by just saying it as colon string. So however you defined a number over here, you can simply say it as a string as well. So you have defined a number, and you can also declare a string as well. You can say it as, let's say, let array 4 colon string of square bracket. You have to use a square bracket because you are trying to define more than one element, and you can say it as JS, TS, and so on. You can, if you try to print some other values, then it will throw us an error. So you can define it in other way as well. How could we use loop through? That is what we have gone through right now. So we need to iterate array right for printing. We can. So if you want to access all the elements from the array, then you can basically iterate through. Okay, TSX is not recognized. Suresh, you basically have to install the TSX that you can go through with our previous sessions, or you can basically get the help from the other people that are available over here. They'll definitely help you. If not, then you can again come back to me. I'll provide you the command. So command is npm install. This command you can try to install for TSX. So could you give us an example, anytime example of for off loop? I've just given the for off loop as well, which we have talked about. Real time. Could you allow me to talk? Unmute. Surisha, yes. Let me check it out. Okay. Okay, so other questions, are you showing TypeScript or JavaScript in the loop? So both are, like whatever the file that we are trying to use in both JavaScript and TypeScript, it will work in the same. Please mute yourself if you're not trying to talk. Why are you not using var and const variable, only let is being used? You can try to use, there is nothing wrong in that. You can just try to use. I'm just trying to use let. You can also use const because we are not changing anything. So instead of let, you can try to use const over here. But we know the concept, like what is the concept of using let and const. So depending on that, you can try to use certain type of variables. Okay. Now, is there any scenario we can use for off loop, or anytime we can use? So for off loop, if you want to access any kind of value from an array, you can always use. But for off loop is a simplest one, so we can use whenever you are interacting with an array. When you are interacting with an iterable objects, which is array strings, you can basically use the this concept, which is for off loop. We'll see, like when we do a data-driven testing in terms of the test automation, we'll be using for off loop. For off is not an array. For off is a loop basically. So I've just explained it. Do you want me to explain it once again, Priyanka? So any is basically
for a loop.
So any that I have declared over here is will be acceptable. Whenever you try to print it as any, it will automatically consider any kind of value that you are trying to accept over here. So either you can declare for any, you can declare either this one, or you can also declare this way as well. Okay, so any will be considered any type of data type, any number of data type, you can store it over here. Whereas when you are trying to make it as a number, or let's say any other values, then you have to make it as number of array. That means array of a number.
Which Praveen, it means the empty array?
Right, here we have declared empty array.
Okay, we are insert that values. Array of 0 is TS and array of 3. 1 is 7. Okay. Yeah.
Correct. Okay, so now let's quickly see the second way of
I
declaration.
mean, one quick question. What is, you used variable of iterable, right? For every thing we need to use variable, let variable of array.
You can use A as well.
Oh, okay.
You can use any type of variable declaration. We have just declared a variable. Can be anything.
Okay, can be any value, right? Okay.
Can be any variable over here. You can also give ELE element. You can also give A. You can also give I. Anything that you can give. The only significance over here for this variable is it will identify the elements that are available inside an array. That's it.
Okay, got it.
So Praveen, what I understood, like for the for of loop concept, like when first we are declaring an variable and we are storing the value of the earlier declared variable into that variable, right?
Right. That
So
is
is
what
it
happens.
okay? So is it okay? Got it. Thanks.
That is what happened internally, that it iterates through each and every values of an array, which will basically get whatever the array values available inside this iterable one by one, and whatever the number of elements that are there, those many times this loop will execute.
Okay. And can I also print the values index wise? So let's say ELE dot 0. So it will only print the first.
This ELE will not have idea of index. Here it will directly get the value.
Okay.
In this case, you can print the index. You can simply say it as I, comma, array of 2 of. And in this case, you will see that this will also print us the value as index as well.
Okay.
Here you can see like 0, 10, 130, 240, and so on.
Okay. So in case of for loop, it will print the entire array, right?
Right, right.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Of will do, like, it fetches the number along with the index. That's what, right? It is.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the second way of a declaration of an array is by using an array constructor. So every concept will have some kind of constructor. Earlier we have seen a function constructor, right? Earlier we have also seen a function constructor where a function keyword starting with a F was a constructor. In the same way, we have array constructor as well in both JavaScript and TypeScript, which will start with an A capital. And whenever, as we discussed earlier, whenever it comes with a constructor keyword, there we have to create it by using a new keyword. Okay, so syntax will be again same things, which is let array name that we have declared. You can also define the data type if required, and then we'll be writing or creating an array by using a new keyword, new. And this array that you see starting with capital A, starting with capital A is basically a constructor available inside JavaScript and TypeScript. So we have a function as a constructor, we have array as a constructor, we have string as a constructor, and we also have object as a constructor. Okay, so every non-primitive data type will have a constructor as well. Now, how do we define them? It's a simple, which is let array 5. You can also define the data type over here. Let's say someone was trying to ask a string data type, so I'll just make it as string data type, and you can define how many number of elements that you are trying to store. You can also define that like 5 number of elements. Okay, but that will not be limited. You can also keep on adding the value. Okay, but how do we declare the value inside an array over here? So we can simply define it inside array, which is, let's say, we have given as an an array of a string value, right? So we can simply define, let's say, a TypeScript. We can also define a JavaScript. You can also define something which is like blue and so on. So let array, you can define what kind of value that you are trying to store inside the array. And you can also define the inline over here as well. You can simply say it as any. If you do not want to define over here, you can also make it as any inside this array. If you do not define anything and try to write some values over here, in terms of a constructor way of declaration of an array, it will consider the data type as a first value over here. You consider the data type as a first value that you have defined inside the array. Okay, so you can also provide the data type, which is let's say in the form of any, or you can say it as any over here. And when you are trying to define in an array constructor way, you have to say the data type inside the array constructor that you are trying to use. You can simply mention it as any. Okay. So when you are trying to define in a constructor way, you have to define the data type inside the constructor. This becomes just a variable which stores any value that you are trying to store. In terms of this, you have to define the data type like this, which is let's say string in the form of array, and it will only allow the string type of data that you can store over here. It will start throwing saying that number is not assignable to a type string. Okay. Second thing, so I've given a wrong things over here. Second thing, whenever you are trying to create an array using an array constructor, inside the array that you have declared a constructor, there we have to provide the data type using an angular bracket. And the data type should be the primitive data type that we have used. That means string. You do not have to mention an array symbol over here. Okay. You do not have to mention array symbol over here because it automatically considers that you are trying to store an array, because this is an array constructor available inside an array, inside a JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay. If you want to store a multiple, you can simply say it as array over here. And how do we access the value? In the same way, however, we have accessed inside this one. So whenever you are trying to access the value, you can simply say it as array of, let's say, 0. And this will also give us the first value that are available inside an array. Accessing part is a similar things, but defining is a bit different over here by using an array constructor starting with a capital. Okay. So this is how we declare an array, how we define the array in a different way in both JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay. Any question over here for declaration of an array?
Yeah, one question, Praveen. Like
Yes.
we use new keyword for object creation, right? So
Right.
we can't
Yes.
constructor.
Right. So we use a new keyword for object creation. The constructor is also a part of object itself. Right. So that is where I said whenever you hear a word as a constructor, that becomes basically a part of an object. And whenever you have a keyword constructor, there a new keyword will come into picture. That is what we had seen at the time of function constructor, where we have defined a function by using a new keyword. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
How is it different, like function constructor and array constructor? Angular
Only-
bracket, right?
The only thing different is a function keyword over here in terms of array. And apart from that, everything will be similar.
Will be the similar. Okay.
Praveen,
Yes.
yeah, so is it mandatory to, define the data type while creating an constructor of an array? Like,
Right. So it is basically not mandatory, but if you have not defined anything, then it will start throwing an error, because whatever the first value that you define over here, that will be considered as a data type of the values, data type of
Okay.
the
So-
variable inside this. But let's say
Okay,
if
so-
you Mhm.
yeah, so first, let's say I have provided first as a string value. So for the entire array, I mean, entire value should be in the string format only, right?
It will throw you an error because it first consider it as a string, but it will not stop you from the execution. It will just give
Okay.
you a warning saying that argument of type number is not assignable to a parameter string. Okay, but it will just give you a warning. It will not throw you any error because the TypeScript will be ultimately converted to a JavaScript.
Okay, got it.
Okay, but when you try to do let's say ESC, at that point of time, it will throw you a compile time error saying that there is a compilation issue, that you have declared a string, but you are trying to also store a number. Okay, so this will just throw you an error, but this will not stop you from the execution. Ultimately, it will not stop you from the execution. It's just because all the codes, all the type of TypeScript code will be converted into a JavaScript. And JavaScript does not have any kind of data type, so it will automatically get the value inside the ID.
What is the real-time example, right? Like where we use for web app, like, in the automation.
In terms of an automation, you will be using in when we try to do a data-driven testing.
Driven, okay.
Right? Data-driven testing, getting the data from, let's say, JSON file or getting the data from XN file, you will be basically using an array concept over there.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Right.
So when we're using any, we're not giving the square bracket, right? Like I asked the question, like
Here, right, in terms of so in terms of a array constructor way of declaration of an array, we have to write it as it is a constructor. So constructor will accept some kind of parameter, right? So it says that this is a constructor which accepts some kind of parameter, whatever you have defined. So when we defined, that means it accepts an argument. So when you provide a parameter should be in the form of parenthesis itself. Okay, but this is what your question, right?
No. I'm asking like you answered already. Like for any, we don't give that square bracket if we use any other data type. But if I give string, then we have to give the string bracket.
Then that is mandatory. Any
So,
will basically.
Even if we give any, that is a collection of different also, right? So how different it becomes? Like if we give string square bracket means we are giving multiple string data type. If we are giving any means also we are giving different bunch of different data types, right?
Correct.
Why it's not necessary for any, but it's necessary for string
bracket, right? This bracket here, whatever you see over here, and probably we have declared here as well, right? So when you try to declare in terms of a literal way, you can also define this square bracket as well. That will denote that you are trying to store a array of a data. What kind of data? It can be any. Whereas in terms of whenever you define it as only any, this will consider that any type of data type you can store. And where are you trying to store? You are trying to store inside an array. So it will automatically consider that whatever the array that you have declared over here, it can accept any type of data type, any type of values, multiple values as well. And where are you trying to store is inside the array. So it does not basically necessary for us in terms of defining the bracket over here. Now, if you talk,
then why it's necessary for string? Then it should also understand like I'm trying to store string in a.
I was just coming to that point.
Yeah.
So when you say as a string, that means you are mentioning that you just have to define a string value. String value means a single string value. Any value means not a single any. It can accept any type of things, right? When you talk about a string over here, that means you are simply saying it as this is just a string value that you are trying to define. Okay, if you can say over here, it says that these three value is not assignable only to a type string over here. Okay, whereas in terms of any, if you try to see, this can be any data type. Okay, it is free to accept any data type. That means there will be a multiple elements. In terms of a string, it consider a single values over here. String is a single value. Any can be multiple values. Does it answer your question and still have confusion?
No, I was thinking like if I give string means it should store
String means a
data
single
types
element. String means a single element.
yeah.
String is a single element, and when you try to say any, can be any type of element. That means a multiple elements.
But both have data types, right? Both denotes like any means any type of data type. String means only string type of data type. But storing the multiples one for giving that square bracket. So if also we give any means you can get any data type. But if you store one more than one, why it's not mandatory for any that I'm not.
That is what I'm saying. So string is a data type. When you try to say it as an array of string, that means you are trying to declare a multiple number of strings. But when you say any is also data type. But it says that you can define any number of and any type of data type as well. And that is why it does not give us a mandatory part to define an array symbol over here. Okay, I'll give you probably the correct way of example. In our next session, we can have a discussion regarding this. And I'll show you the proof for this, what happened in this case.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and Praveen, the syntax is different too, right? The string and any, those are completely different, right?
Syntax should be same. Like string along with the square bracket, any should be either any or square bracket.
Any, it can be any equals. No, you removed string, right? Let array. I'm confused now. The first 17 and 19, right? What's the difference between line 17 and 19?
17 is consist of 3 different data type. 19 is any type of data type that you can store.
Any type of data type, right? Okay.
Yeah,
And this
here
is
it
all
is
part of
any.
JavaScript.
This is not part of JavaScript. This is just part of TypeScript.
Script, okay. And JavaScript is line 17, right?
JavaScript is line 17. Yes.
Line 17. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting confused with the TypeScript only. Yeah, because it seems to be harder. Yeah. Okay.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, Praveen, I have one query. So it's out of curiosity I'm asking. So does it have any kind of multi-dimensional array concept in here?
So we have a concept, but generally we'll not be using.
Yeah, real time we don't hardly we use are very rare.
Right.
Actually. So
Right.
it's very typical actually. I know it's
Correct,
tough.
correct.
Just information perspective I'm asking.
Right. We do have. I can provide you the details, but we do have that concept as well.
Okay.
But in real time, we do never use.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Okay. So I'll stop it over here for today. And then we'll continue again in our next session from here on, where we'll discuss the different types of methods that we have.
So
Okay.
Praveen, so one general question, like when we are writing the code in the TypeScript, so if we are not providing the data types along with our code, so is it fine, right? I mean,
that's fine. That's completely, and we generally write without the data type itself.
okay, because every time to declare a data type, it's a bit difficult, right?
Right. We generally do every time without using the data type.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks, Praveen.
Even inside the organization. Okay. So that's it then. Thanks a lot, everyone. Whatever the question that you have, I'll again take in the next session.